Go back, sit on the floor, and they gotta come in here.
On the evening of July 11, 2025, Tunica County Dispatch received a 911 call from 1060 Soleil Drive in Robinsonville, Mississippi. Shots had been fired inside a residence. Responding deputies arrived to a chaotic and disturbing scene. 3 individuals were found with gunshot wounds. One of them, 30-year-old Nykeria Jude, was pronounced dead at the scene. 2 other victims, 24-year-old Devontae Jimerson and 6-year-old Markello Braxton, were critically injured and airlifted to hospitals in Memphis. Law enforcement quickly identified a suspect, 41-year-old Markello Braxton. He was declared armed and dangerous.
Tunica County deputies are searching for a suspect after a deadly shooting in Robinsonville. It happened around 7 p.m. Thursday in the 1000 block of Soleil Drive. When deputies arrived, they found 3 people with gunshot wounds. 30-year-old Nykeria Jude was pronounced dead at the scene. A 24-year-old man and a 6-year-old girl were both airlifted for treatment. Deputies identified the suspect as Markello Braxton of Robinsonville. He is considered to be armed and dangerous. Anyone with information about the shooting can contact the Tunica County Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers.
A search began. His name and photo were released to the public. A manhunt unfolded across the surrounding area. What was initially described as a domestic shooting began raising unanswered questions. The exact nature of the relationships involved was not disclosed. No motive was confirmed. No official timeline was released. 3 days later, on July 14th, deputies located a body in a wooded area near the crime scene. The remains matched the physical description of Markello Braxton. According to officials, he had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A firearm was found nearby. Final identification was pending verification through the Mississippi Crime Lab. Following the incident, updates from the Tunica County Sheriff's Office remained limited. Markello Braxton was released from Unsolved Children's Hospital days later. A law enforcement motorcade escorted her home. No arrests were made. No charges filed. Yet the sequence of events remained incomplete. What exactly took place inside the home before 7:06 p.m. that Friday evening? What interactions preceded the gunfire? And what decisions led to violent outcome? Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to the senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Nykeria Jude, age 30, resided on Soleil Drive in Robinsonville, Mississippi. Her life was centered around motherhood, and she was described by friends and relatives as a vibrant, caring, and devoted parent. She maintained an active presence in her neighborhood and was reportedly protective over her daughter, Markello Braxton. Details concerning her educational background have not been publicly documented. Her employment status at the time of her death remains unclear. No employer or workplace affiliation was mentioned in any official statement or media release. Nykeria was a mother of a 6-year-old girl, Markello Braxton, who survived the shooting but sustained serious injuries. Markello was airlifted to Unsolved Children's Hospital for emergency treatment. The child's last name indicates a likely familial tie to the suspected shooter, Markello Braxton, suggesting he may have been the biological father or a significant parental figure in the household. It is still unverified whether Markello and Nykeria were in an active relationship at the time of the incident or had previously separated. Reports point to a history of involvement, possibly romantic, but not enough public documentation exists to confirm the timeline or terms of their connection. Nykeria is believed to have been the primary caregiver for Markello. There is no indication of a live-in partner at the time of the shooting, but further investigation may reveal if Markello resided intermittently at the residence or maintained regular access to the home. There are references to her social media activity, particularly Facebook, where friends shared tributes after her death. These posts affirm her active community engagement and confirm she was well known within her immediate circle. Any details about church involvement or counseling participation are still under review. As of this report, no confirmed records have surfaced showing prior 911 calls specifically from the Soleil Drive address involving Nykeria and Markello. However, given the violent nature of the incident, law enforcement has initiated a thorough review of any prior domestic disturbance calls, protective orders, or prior investigations linked to either individual. Community interviews and online comments imply that there may have been a troubled relationship, with some witnesses suggesting prior verbal altercations. It is currently unknown if law enforcement or social services had ever intervened at the address. Markello Braxton, age 41, was identified by authorities as the suspect in the shooting. The exact nature of his relationship with Nykeria Jude remains ambiguous. They are believed to have had an intimate history and may have shared a child, based on the daughter's last name. There is no public evidence to confirm whether they lived together at the time of the shooting, but several community members have confirmed they had frequent contact. Some suggest that their relationship had recently soured, with indications of arguments or separation. No text messages, emails, or direct messages between Nykeria and Markello have been released. However, law enforcement has reportedly obtained mobile devices and are conducting digital forensics to recover potential signs of prior threats, harassment, or escalation. Social media accounts belonging to Nykeria have not shown overt warnings, but loved ones have speculated online that she may have kept private concerns out of public view. Neighbors reportedly heard raised voices at the Soleil Drive address on more than one occasion prior to July 11th. No police reports have been officially linked to these events. It remains unclear whether these incidents were ever reported or if witnesses dismissed them as personal disputes. There is no public record of recent law enforcement activity at the residence before the shooting. Witnesses are still being interviewed to gather a clearer picture of any patterns of tension or behavioral red flags from Markello Braxton. On the evening of Friday, July 11, 2025, a 911 call was placed at exactly 7:06 p.m. The caller reported multiple gunshots fired at a residential home located at 1060 Soleil Drive, a quiet neighborhood in Robinsonville, Mississippi. According to dispatch logs, the call came from a neighbor who heard a series of loud, consecutive bangs followed by screaming. The caller remained on the line, reporting sounds of movement within the house and a vehicle accelerating away from the property. Law enforcement from the Tunica County Sheriff's Office arrived on scene within minutes, along with emergency medical services. Upon arrival, deputies entered the home and discovered a violent scene with 3 victims suffering from gunshot wounds. There were no signs of forced entry. The front door was closed but not locked, suggesting the shooter may have been familiar with the victims or invited him prior to the attack. The crime scene inside the house showed signs of a struggle near the living room and hallway. One adult female, later identified as Nykeria Jude, was found unresponsive on the floor near the entryway. A male victim, age 24, was found with gunshot injuries in the kitchen area, attempting to crawl toward the back door. A third victim, a 6-year-old girl, was discovered in the bedroom with a bullet wound, still breathing but unresponsive. Nykeria Jude, age 30, was pronounced dead at the scene. Emergency personnel confirmed the time of death between 7:06 and 7:12 p.m. She sustained at least 2 gunshot wounds, one to the upper chest and another to the left side of the head. According to preliminary forensic analysis, the head wound was likely fatal and possibly inflicted at close range. Her body position near the front of the home suggests she was likely the first person shot. Authorities did not find any defensive wounds on her body, which supports the possibility that the shooting began as a surprise or ambush. The shooter was believed to have used a handgun. The second victim was a 24-year-old man whose identity has not been publicly disclosed. He sustained multiple gunshot wounds to the lower abdomen. Paramedics stabilized him on-site and transported him to a regional trauma center. At the time of arrival, he was in critical condition but conscious. His relationship to Nykeria Jude or the suspect remains unclear. He may have been a friend, relative, or an unrelated visitor. Investigators later interviewed him after stabilization, but withheld his statements from public release pending further inquiry. The third victim, Markello Braxton, is the daughter of Nykeria Jude. She was found with a single gunshot wound to her lower back. Due to the severity of her injury, she was airlifted to Luba Children's Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. At the time of transport, she was listed in critical but stable condition. Markello underwent emergency surgery upon arrival. Doctors reported that the injury was non-lethal but potentially debilitating, depending on spinal and nerve involvement. Her long-term prognosis will depend on future medical evaluations, rehabilitation, and therapy. Following the emergency call and scene assessment, the Tunica County Sheriff's Office secured the perimeter and initiated a manhunt for the suspected shooter. Deputies conducted door-to-door inquiries, collected witness statements, and reviewed nearby surveillance footage.
Now to this developing story where the Tunica County Sheriff's Office says one woman is dead and a man and a 6-year-old were injured in a shooting Friday evening. Deputies have identified this man. This is Markello Braxton as a suspect. He's considered armed and dangerous. This happened around 7 o'clock last night in Robinsonville, Mississippi, at a home on Soleil Drive near Old Highway 61 North. Deputies say 30-year-old Nykeria Jude was pronounced dead on the scene. A 24-year-old man and a 6-year-old female was also treated for gunshot wounds here in Memphis. Anyone with information should reach out to the Tunica County Sheriff's Office or Crime Stoppers. That number is 662-910-0400.
By late evening, the suspect was identified as 41-year-old Markello Braxton, a resident of the area with personal ties to Nykeria Jude and the child. He was immediately classified as armed and dangerous, and law enforcement issued a public safety alert. Multiple local and federal agencies, including U.S. Marshals, joined the search over following days. Patrols extended throughout the county, and alerts were shared via regional news and social media channels. Markello Braxton, age 41, some records list 42, resided in or near the Robinsonville area. Public records linked him to prior addresses in Tunica County and surrounding regions. At the time of the incident, his employment status was unknown. He had no documented full-time occupation. Pending investigation into his criminal history revealed several prior arrests for misdemeanors. Investigators are also reviewing sealed cases for any domestic violence charges or firearm offenses. His direct relationship to Nykeria Jude is under review, with preliminary reports indicating he may have been either her ex-partner or the father of Markello Braxton. Braxton fled the scene on foot or by vehicle immediately after the shooting. Witnesses reported seeing a man running behind the property toward wooded areas, but could not confirm his identity at the time. The murder weapon was not recovered at the scene, leading investigators to believe he took it with him. Law enforcement canvassed the surrounding area and dispatched search teams, including K-9 units and aerial surveillance, but had no confirmed sightings in the immediate 48 hours. Residents of the area were warned to remain indoors, and deputies conducted regular patrols. On Monday, July 14th, at approximately 4:41 p.m., deputies discovered a deceased body in a wooded area directly behind a row of houses on Soleil Drive. The body was located approximately 300 yards from the crime scene. The individual was found with an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A handgun was recovered nearby, believed to be the same weapon used in the original shooting. The body showed signs of early decomposition, suggesting death had occurred within 48 to 72 hours. Investigators submitted samples for forensic confirmation through dental records and DNA. While no official identity was immediately confirmed, law enforcement strongly believed it to be Markello Braxton. The preliminary coroner's report confirmed 2 gunshot wounds, one to the upper chest, with internal damage to the lungs, one to the head, with immediate brain trauma. The trajectory of the headshot indicated close-range firing, possibly execution style. Time of death was consistent with the first 911 call, between 7:06 and 7:10 p.m. The firearm recovered near the suspect's body was identified as a semi-automatic 9mm handgun. Ballistics tests matched bullets found in Nykeria Jude and the other victims to the weapon. The serial number was partially filed off, delaying confirmation of ownership. At least 7 shots were fired in total, based on shell casings recovered at the scene. Forensic teams conducted a thorough examination of the crime scene. Gunpowder residue was later found on the suspect's hands and clothing. Victims did not have residue, suggesting they were not armed. Entry and exit wounds were clean, with no indications of struggle from Nykeria. Footprints leading from the back door into the woods matched shoes later found with the suspect's body. Blood trails, DNA samples, and fingerprints were collected throughout the home. Following the deadly shooting on July 11, 2025, that left 30-year-old Nykeria Jude dead and 2 others injured, the Tunica County Sheriff's Office issued an immediate statement confirming the location, time, and victim count of the incident. According to Sheriff K.C. Hamp, deputies responded at approximately 7:06 p.m. to a reported shooting at a residence on Soleil Drive, located in the Robinson area. Initial press briefings from the Sheriff's Office verified that 3 individuals were shot: Jude, her 6-year-old daughter Markello Braxton, and a 24-year-old male. Jude was pronounced deceased at the scene, while the surviving victims were airlifted to trauma centers. Markello was flown to Loup-Garou Children's Hospital in Memphis. The male victim, whose name has not been officially released, was also transported in critical condition. Law enforcement quickly identified Markello Braxton, age 41, as the primary suspect in the case. Braxton was described in early media releases as armed and dangerous. The U.S. Marshals were reportedly brought in to assist with the manhunt, and local agencies canvassed the area over the next 72 hours. A follow-up announcement on July 14, 2025, confirmed that a body believed to be Braxton's was found in a wooded area behind homes on the same street where the shooting occurred. A firearm was recovered at the scene. Authorities stated the suspect had apparently died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, although formal identification was pending crime lab analysis. Although the suspect died before formal arrest or trial, officials indicated that multiple felony charges would have been filed had he lived. These would likely have included first-degree murder for the killing of Nykeria Jude, attempted murder for the shooting of the 6-year-old child and the 24-year-old man, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, child endangerment, possession of a firearm during commission of a felony. There is no public record confirming whether a warrant had been formally issued between the time of the shooting and the discovery of Braxton's body. However, law enforcement categorized him as an active fugitive, indicating the warrant process was either completed or underway. Due to the death of the suspect, and based on standard legal procedures and homicide investigations, no criminal prosecution will occur in this case. Officials have not publicly declared the case closed. However, with the suspect deceased and no further arrests made, law enforcement has shifted its focus to forensic confirmation and documentation of findings. Pending items include crime lab confirmation of Braxton's identity through DNA or fingerprints, ballistic analysis to match the firearm found with the bullets at the crime scene, autopsy reports for both Jude and Braxton, toxicology results. Unless new evidence arises suggesting the involvement of accomplices or obstruction, the criminal side of the case is effectively concluded due to the suspect's death. 6-year-old Markello Braxton, one of the shooting victims, was transported by medical helicopter to Loup-Garou Children's Hospital in Memphis, where she was treated for gunshot wounds. While specific injuries have not been detailed in public reports, hospital officials described her condition as critical but stable during the initial days. Law enforcement later confirmed that Markello had survived her injuries and was discharged after intensive care. Her long-term prognosis, including potential surgeries, mobility issues, or trauma-related complications, has not been fully disclosed. Authorities have not officially confirmed her custody status following her mother's death. However, standard protocol suggests Child Protective Services would have temporarily assumed custody until relative or legal guardian was established. It remains unclear whether her biological father, if not the suspect, or extended family has taken legal responsibility. Given the traumatic nature of the incident, Markello is likely receiving psychological care, including child trauma counseling. Local resources such as child advocacy centers, grief therapy specialists, and victim support funds are expected to be involved in her ongoing recovery. When Markello was discharged from Loup-Garou Children's Hospital, law enforcement organized a public escort procession, leading her safely back to her community. The escort was designed to show solidarity and support from Tunica County deputies and surrounding agencies. News outlets captured footage of the police convoy and Sheriff K.C. Hamp's statement, praising the strength of the child and offering condolences to the family. The symbolic gesture was widely shared on social media and recognized as an attempt to bring visibility and reassurance to a community shaken by violence. Nykeria Jude was laid to rest in a private funeral ceremony attended by family, close friends, and local community members. The date and location of the service have not been published in major media, likely to preserve privacy and avoid public spectacle. A GoFundMe account was created to assist with funeral expenses and Marleja's medical recovery. The campaign received widespread attention across Mississippi and beyond, accumulating donations and messages of sympathy. During the service, multiple eulogies were delivered, reflecting on Jude's role as a mother, her impact on those around her, and the tragedy of her untimely death. Nykeria's death sparked a viral wave of tributes online. A Facebook video tribute posted by a friend titled, "I finally gained the courage to say R.I.P." circulated rapidly, featuring photos, voiceovers, and heartfelt captions. The video has been shared hundreds of times. Hashtags such as hashtag Justice for Nykeria, hashtag Protect Black Women, and hashtag Marleja Strong trended locally, drawing attention to the dangers of domestic violence and the need for preventive action. Numerous posts emphasized Jude's vibrant personality, her smile, and her dedication to her daughter. Many users expressed outrage over the systemic failure to protect victims from armed abusers. Following the funeral, residents of Robinsonville and surrounding communities organized a candlelight vigil in Jude's honor. The event took place near Soleil Drive, where the shooting occurred. Participants included neighbors, relatives, and clergy. Attendees held candles, displayed posters with Nykeria's image, and stood in silence to honor her life. Some shared testimonies of knowing her personally, while others attended to demand justice and raise awareness about the frequency of similar tragedies. The vigil served not only as a memorial but also as a community response, highlighting the need for mental health resources, domestic violence shelters, and tighter gun control in Mississippi counties where support structures are lacking. As investigators processed crime scene on Soleil Drive, one critical question remained unanswered. Why? The motive behind the killing of Nykeria Jude, the wounding of her 6-year-old daughter, Marleja, and the shooting of a 24-year-old man is still not confirmed by authorities. Several possibilities linger in the absence of a living suspect. Jealousy could be a factor. Unconfirmed reports suggest that Nykeria and Markello Braxton had some form of relationship, possibly romantic or domestic, though the depth and duration of that relationship remain unclear. If there had been a recent separation, or if Braxton perceived a threat to his position in her life, it may have triggered possessive anger. Another angle is a potential custody dispute. Marleja, the only child involved, bore Braxton's last name. Whether he was a biological father has not been publicly confirmed, but his connection to the child may have formed a basis for tension. In similar domestic cases, disputes over visitation rights or parenting decisions have escalated to violence. There is also the question of domestic violence. If there was a documented or undocumented history of abuse, this may have been a culmination of escalating control. However, no protective orders have yet been found in public records. The presence of a 24-year-old male victim adds a layer of complexity. Was he a romantic partner, friend, or merely in the wrong place at the wrong time? Without clarification, it's unclear whether he was an intended target or collateral damage. Lastly, was the crime premeditated or impulsive? The methodical use of firearm, striking 3 individuals, and fleeing the scene suggests intent. However, the act of hiding nearby and not attempting a full escape raises questions about Braxton's state of mind and whether the decision to shoot was truly planned, or the result of a rapidly escalating situation. Markello Braxton was found dead 3 days later in a wooded area just behind the residences on Soleil Drive, the same street where the shootings occurred. He appeared to have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The decision to remain so close to the scene raises critical and puzzling questions. If Braxton had intended to escape arrest or flee justice, his choice of hiding place was illogical. He didn't attempt to leave the region. He didn't head for the state line. Instead, he chose to retreat into a wooded area within walking distance of crime. There are several theories. One is that Braxton may have been watching the aftermath unfold, ambulances, sirens, media, police lines, before deciding to end his life. It's possible he wasn't hiding as much as he was waiting. Perhaps he was waiting for a final moment, for someone to come find him, or for the moment when the weight of what he had done caught up with him. Another possibility is psychological paralysis. After committing the crime, he may have been unable to think clearly or formulate a rational escape plan. Fear, guilt, and mental instability could have driven him to isolate himself, armed, and contemplate his next move, which ultimately ended in suicide. His proximity to the scene denied law enforcement the opportunity to interrogate him, confirm motive, or reveal further details. His death left behind more questions than answers. One of the most haunting aspects of the case is the possibility that it could have been prevented. Were there earlier indicators of danger? Did the victim or those close to her report threats? Did anyone alert authorities about violent behavior from the suspect? At this time, no public records show protective orders, domestic violence charges, or active custody proceedings between Nykeria Jude and Markello Braxton. However, absence of evidence does not mean absence of red flags. Neighbors may have heard previous arguments. Friends may have seen warning signs, text messages, sudden fear, controlling behavior. But if these warnings were ignored, overlooked, or never documented, it left a deadly situation unchecked. Cases like these reveal gaps in domestic violence intervention. Survivors often face stigma, fear, and limited support when seeking help. If Nykeria attempted to leave a volatile relationship, the system may not have been equipped to protect her or her daughter. The state of Mississippi consistently ranks among the highest in the nation for domestic violence rates. According to data from a national coalition against domestic violence, nearly 40% of Mississippi women experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. Firearms are involved in a significant percentage of domestic-related homicides. Mississippi's gun laws do not require permits for handgun possession, and access to weapons often escalates threats into deadly outcomes. Shelters and crisis programs in rural areas like Tunica County are often underfunded and understaffed. Victims have limited access to safe housing, legal support, or advocacy, particularly in communities of color. If Nykeria had tried to escape, she may have lacked protection or options needed to do so safely. Nykeria Jude's murder is not isolated. Just this year, multiple domestic violence-related shootings have been reported in the South. Women attempting to leave relationships or asserting boundaries are statistically at the highest risk of lethal violence. In 2023 alone, over 70% of female homicide victims in Mississippi were killed by someone they knew intimately. Many of these cases involve similar patterns: isolation, controlling behavior, access to firearms, and lack of protective interventions. The recurrence of such tragedies raises a deeper question. Are current systems, legal, social, and protective, adequate to prevent domestic homicides? Each case like this adds to a growing body of evidence suggesting the answer is no. The story of Nykeria Jude's murder was covered primarily by WLBT, first to report the shooting timeline and suspect alert. WMC Action News 5 provided updates on the child's condition and law enforcement statements. DeSoto County News reported on the search for Braxton and community safety concerns. Yahoo News covered national interest and family support efforts. GunMemorial.org listed Nykeria's name among other recent gun violence victims. Tunica County Sheriff's Office released statements confirming the timeline and suspect ID. Crime scene images, unreleased to the public as of now, may offer insight into the positioning and nature of the attack. 911 call recordings, if released, could provide further understanding of the urgency and situation inside the home. News footage of Marlesia's return from Luba Nur Children's Hospital, escorted by law enforcement, became a symbol of both tragedy and survival. This case is not just about a shooting. It is about a system that failed to protect a mother and her child. It is about unheeded warning signs, gaps in intervention, and the silence left by a suspect who took his own life before answering for his actions. A documentary or podcast should aim to do more than retell the event. It should investigate what more could have been done, what policies failed, what community support was absent, and how many others are silently at risk in similar homes. The questions left behind by the death of Nykeria Jude must become part of a larger conversation, because behind every headline is a life, a family, a community changed forever. And behind every statistic is a potential for change. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.